Let's get to our top story. Comes out of the National Basketball Association today. It does appear as though we're putting some of this story to bed from last year. Damon Jones is expected to plead guilty in the sports gambling case. He previously pleaded not guilty to indictments charging him with profiting from rigged poker games and providing sports bettors with non-public information, but now looks like he's pleading guilty to this. It involved LeBron James and Anthony Davis while he worked for the Lakers, allegedly disseminating some information to sports bettors. Jones will plead guilty. Meanwhile, Fanatics has made a big announcement. They're doing combos, aka parlays. They're not calling it parlays, but they're calling it combos, which allows prediction market customers to combine different outcomes like player props, winners, spreads, totals, very similar to a same game parlay. So in this world of prediction markets, we're creeping closer and closer to actually sports wagering as well. Speaking of close, wow, what a performance last night for Cleveland Guardians starter Parker Messick. He had a ninth inning no-hitter going, and then he gave up a hit to start the ninth, then gave up another hit, and they ended up getting pulled from the game after over 100 pitches. The Guardians still win the game by a final score of 4-2. Messick, 9 strikeouts, 8 innings pitched. He's been the best starter for Cleveland. Go figure that this season. Here is his manager, Stephen Vogt, on his performance and the win.
Yeah, he pushes the tempo. He dictates how quick that game's going to go. Attacks the strike zone, works quick. We talk about it, feel like every 5 days, and that was that was very special. What we got to watch tonight. That's a unbelievably talented lineup. That he took a no-hitter into the ninth against, and just continued to attack, continued to give them different looks throughout the whole game. He and Hedgie were, magnificent with their sequencing. Never the same sequence once. Never really doubled up a ton. It's just that arsenal and the way they just that was a beautiful, beautiful game.
Great on the pitching side. Now let's get to the hitting side, where Mike Trout is the hottest player going in baseball right now. He homered for the 4th straight game yesterday. Angels win 11-4. Also, by the way, Aaron Judge homered in the game, but it hasn't seemed to matter. The Angels playing some good baseball right now, and it seems like Trout really enjoys playing in the Bronx as well. Here he is after the game on just how hot he is.
You are the first visiting player to ever homer in 4 consecutive games at Yankee Stadium. Considering how much you enjoy playing here, what's that mean to you?
No, it means a lot. There's been a lot of great players that obviously played here. It's, it's awesome.
Special with your family here?
Oh, yeah, no doubt for sure.
Aaron Judge called you the greatest of all time after the game the other night. I know you two have a pretty good relationship, but how much fun was it with the two of you going toe-to-toe these last 4 games?
Yeah, no, it was really fun. That first game, set it off, and, it was blow for blow for both teams, not just me and Judge. It was fun series. Obviously lost a couple tough ones, but glad we got that bounce back from last night after tough 9th inning. But we took ownership of it and we turned the page.
Understanding you wouldn't like to see it happen against your team, but how much appreciation do you have for Mike Trout?
Yeah, it's unreal. Cool showing from him and Judgy all series. Obviously, you don't want that against us, but you got to acknowledge the greatness. It was a deciding factor today. So, not what we want, but obviously, a great talent.
Good to see Trout back and healthy playing baseball. Meanwhile, the Padres are rolling off wins, 8 straight. They sweep the Mariners 5-2. They've won 11 out of their last 12. Walker Buehler gets the win. The big story from this is the scoreless streak for relief pitcher Mason Miller. He's now up to 30.2 consecutive innings pitched, dating back to last season. Wow, what a performance he's had, and he discussed the streak after the game.
8 straight wins. This team is absolutely rolling. A perfect homestand from your perspective in the back end of that bullpen. What is going so right for this team?
Defense, and the guys are having timely ABs. We're hitting some long balls too, but a lot of good ABs, a lot of 2-strike battles, passing the stick to the next guy, having a lot of trust in the guy behind you. Enough can't be said about those guys.
How about the Tampa Bay Rays? They got a streak of their own, 9 in a row. They beat the White Sox 5-3. Seems like everybody beats the White Sox, but they win as road favorites. Junior Caminero homered for the 2nd straight game, and it's been a nice run for the Rays at the start of the season. Meanwhile, the Giants one-hit the Reds. They win 3-0. Landon Roop had 6 strikeouts in 6 innings pitched, but tempers flared after the game. In the end, with benches clearing, and Sal Stewart, the young rookie, talked about what happened after to get him so upset.
Struck out and came down the mound and was looking at me and pointing at me and just yelling. So tempers flared, things happen, and it's all good. I'm not going to make light into that. We won the series, and things happen, you know. Tough game today, but we won the series, and we're going to go to Minnesota and play. So I'm not going to talk more about that. We leave things on the field, and whatever happens, happens.
What did you think of the way Chase Burns pitched today?
He threw really well. Like I said yesterday, he's going to have a really long career. He's a great player and great friend.
Great start for Stewart and the Reds despite the loss yesterday. The Brewers beat the Blue Jays 2-1 for the second straight day. Brandon Sproat, 6 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts. And Pat Murphy talked after the game with all of the bunts being used by his club. 3 straight in this game. Maybe bunts are back.
I think it's coming back. You know, I think it's obviously a very difficult thing for a pitcher to do his job the way we do it today, and there's a lot of really big men pitching. And then to have to run, break down, secure the baseball, get your eyes on the target, and make a good throw with that type of adrenaline and that type of movement out of the guy running to first. I think it's legit. We've done it for the last couple of years. You've seen it. Not always successful, but the threat of the bunt then becomes a defensive positioning thing too.
Brewers will be in Miami this weekend. I'll be checking them out. I saw the Rockies earlier this season. They got off to a tough start, bounced back, then they lost 6 in a row, but broke that streak yesterday. They beat the Astros by a final of 3-2. Chase Dollander, 5 1/3, 9 strikeouts. The Nationals beat the Pirates in 10 innings, so they split their 4-game series. Marcell Ozuna did homer in the loss, his first home run of the season. Pirates signed him in the offseason. The Rangers came all the way back with 4 runs to beat the A's in the 9th as they win as slight road favorites. Josh Young went 3 for 5 with a home run. And how about those Detroit Tigers? They have been red hot. They won 6 straight games. After an hour rain delay, they came back and all the way back to beat the Royals 10-9. Dylan Dingler hit a home run, 2 for 5 with 2 runs driven in. Meanwhile, the National Hockey League Stanley Cup playoffs about to get underway. Can't wait to see that get started. Congrats to Connor McDavid. He wins his 6th Art Ross trophy. McDavid had 4 assists to clinch it with 138 points. Oilers 6, Canucks 1. The Stanley Cup playoffs, as we mentioned, are set. Kings versus Avalanche, Wild versus Stars, Mammoth Golden Knights, and Ducks Oilers out west. In the East, it's Bruins Sabres, Canadiens Lightning, Senators, Hurricanes, Flyers, Penguins. And by the way, current odds have the Colorado Avalanche as current favorites to win the Stanley Cup, followed by the Tampa Bay Lightning, Carolina Hurricanes, Dallas Stars, and Vegas Golden Knights. Last year's runner-up Edmonton, they are 14-1. We'll see if McDavid and company can capture the cup. Welcome back to Newswire here on this Friday. We've got Sam McQuillan here from Legal Sports Report to go over the latest in sports betting, and we begin with daily fantasy here today. A little bit of a surprise story over at LegalSportsReport.com, which you can read about, Sam. Well, I mean, this could certainly be a game changer, and we don't even lead off with prediction markets today. Are you kidding me? We're leading off with daily fantasy sports. No offense to DFS, but there's probably some people that are like, wait a second, that's still around at this point with sports betting and prediction markets and everything else. The state of Virginia, Sam, is looking to dial it back a decade and say you got to pay taxes on DFS? What's going on here?
Pretty funny that we're talking about daily fantasy sports now, that we have all these other forms of sports betting that are popping up, and similar challenges that went on with DFS now happening to them. But Virginia, I think about 10 years after they formally okayed daily fantasy sports betting, now they're trying to make some changes finally. One of that is to actually tax the industry for the first time because of like the craziness of state fantasy laws and how they can differ. Some states have really strict laws and rules governing the products. A lot of other states, like Texas is one, really have, it says it's illegal, but they're still there anyway, and it hasn't been enforced. Virginia's kind of in the middle where it's been allowed, but it doesn't have really any legislative or governing body that really makes rules for these products. So they finally came out with some new ones. The timing is definitely interesting given all, the prediction market activity going on, lawsuits that the state's involved with. But among some of the other changes, Craig, notably is going to be the ban on player versus house contests on fantasy sports products, which we talked about maybe a couple of years ago when states really started to crack down on pick-em products from Underdog and Prize Picks. These pick a couple player props and kind of make a parlay that a lot of states came down against. So that'll target those products from those companies. They've largely avoided these kind of similar changes in other states by just changing the back end of the product, where instead of getting $100 from Prize Picks itself when you win, that $100 comes directly from a prize pool of other players' entry fees. So it's effectively the same product. It just, for the company on the back end, has looked a little bit different. But there's a lot of controversial things out here in sports betting right now, especially with rules around it. So maybe this is just an opportunity where the legislature could score an easy win and make some small changes on a smaller product. But yeah, definitely interesting that it's coming around this at this time while so much other stuff is on kind of everyone else's plate.
2025 sports betting controversies, certainly there were a lot of them, but maybe no bigger than the ones involving the Cleveland Guardians players and allegedly throwing different pitches to try to help others make money. And so the state of Ohio seems to be trying to put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak, Sam, where they would prefer if there was no sports betting at all. And I don't know that the two stories are correlated, but that was a major story from last year. Simply put, is this possible, Sam? Can you possibly just end sports betting based on a couple of incidents? It doesn't seem realistic to me, but they are just, at least from what I'm seeing, discussing ending online sports betting. Maybe there will still be retail shops. I guess there could be more local monitoring. If you could dive into this a little bit more and tell us what they're thinking.
Yeah, I think we know pretty well that no matter what any lawmaker does ever, even if it was a bill that kills or makes sports betting illegal, sports betting is still going to happen. And it's been happening throughout the past, I don't know, however many hundreds of years of sporting events in this country, which is one of the reasons states legalized sports betting in the first place, a state like Ohio. So it's not really a thing they're able to do is end the actual practice. But when you have these, these incidents, these headlines that you mentioned from the Cleveland Guardians pitchers in sports betting scandals, and people talk about legal sports betting as encouraging bad actors, which could be true, could not be true. It makes a lot of these things more politically palpable, at least for lawmakers in Ohio to actually propose ending all online sports betting, which we know is where the bulk of all the legal activity is. And also in the proposal, they're proposing ending player props and parlays. So other lawmakers in Ohio have come out and said exactly that this is kind of just, it would not accomplish the goal. If the goal is to prevent sports betting scandals, if the goal is to stop people from the bad parts of sports betting, making it illegal, most of it anyway, the online activity, kind of just gets rid of what the state did a couple of years ago and the whole reason it legalized sports betting in the first place. Now, obviously Ohio is that state where those Cleveland Guardians pitchers were involved in that alleged case of rigging pitches. We saw Governor Mike DeWine come out after that very vocally and say legalizing sports betting is the thing he regrets most as the governor in the state. He was very instrumental in working with the MLB on placing those caps on micro-bet markets that were allegedly involved in that case. So Ohio has been kind of a hotbed for some of this political reaction. Now, whether lawmakers are actually able to end online sports betting, I don't think so. I think, the fellow lawmakers in the legislature will not see this as just kind of a non-starter, something they're not going to do. But what it could end up in, Craig, is a baked down proposal. The bill could get whittled down to perhaps remove player props, perhaps remove parlays, perhaps do something smaller as a result of this kind of bigger push. So it's definitely something we're going to keep watching that could pop up in other states as well. Any kind of restrictions that come out of all of these crazy cases we've had over the past couple of years. And, you mentioned that might be the biggest one we've had, which is saying a lot considering the fact that, NBA head coach, I think the second day of the season, was arrested by the FBI. And you have the Terry Rozier case, and every day it just seems like there's more of these scandals, which in turn lead to these kind of proposals.
Finally, let's get to this lawsuit that we found out about right before the NCAA tournament, Sam, and that was DraftKings being sued by the NCAA for infringing upon college basketball trademarks. Should DraftKings have been more careful with this, Sam? Should they have not used these? Or generally speaking, we see so much infringement through the years that's not caught or not enforced. Was this one of those simply that was caught, or did DraftKings really go too far?
Yeah, well, DraftKings certainly does not think it went too far. It certainly does not think that it shouldn't have used the name March Badness on its betting markets on the app. You know, when you go to bet on the NCAA tournament, you open it up, you click college basketball, and it says March Badness games. DraftKings says that was to have a distinction between any other sport that it offers. It does the similar thing with the NIT, and it argues that it's not actually using the March Badness logo or the trademark in that sense, but it's protected by the First Amendment and free speech. So DraftKings definitely does not think that it did anything wrong here. They've asserted that multiple times. The NCAA, meanwhile, which the lawsuit just kind of came on the second day of the tournament, sort of out of nowhere. They've been very vocal about wanting the case to move very fast before next year's tournament. They filed with the district court just yesterday, urging them to speed up the timeline for the trial, so that March Madness is not underway again next year, and DraftKings is using the same thing. They say the trial will probably take pretty quickly and not that long. But notably, we've had other sports books kind of change what they're doing as a result. We had BetMGM stop using the term March Madness. I think they call them men's March tournament games instead. So it's always interesting with the nuances of what these sports books and other platforms are able to offer. If you go on Kalshi or Polymarket, for example, which doesn't have a deal with the NCAA or the NFL for that matter, they talk about the Super Bowl as the big game. There's other ways to try to allude to this. So I think that's what the NCAA is trying to argue that DraftKings should have done here. And DraftKings saying, you don't have a license on just the words March Madness.
Gotcha. Some of that usually happens every year with the Super Bowl as well. Oh, I said Super Bowl. Say that? Anyway, hope so. Sam, I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy the basketball games for sure, and we'll check back in with you next week here on Newswire. Thanks again.
Yeah, Craig. Thanks a lot.